So word on the street is that you want to date an INTJ. Have you ever met a real INTJ before? Do we really exist? If you want to date an INTJ, I will assure you, we are one of the least romantic type in the Myers-Briggs community. Even in relationships, we've been told that we're emotionally distant. And that's outside of our need to be physically distant. So when you're dating an INTJ, you're basically dating yourself. Alright, let's be real. Attracting an INTJ is not easy. You're basically unlearning everything that society taught you about courtship and learning a new language. And regardless of gender or sexual preferences, there are a few consistencies when it comes down to INTJs and how to get our attention. And a lot of reasons why it's difficult to date an INTJ, I already made a video about. I'll post that video below. Watch that video for more details because this video is very, very long. And if I add those information into this, it's gonna get even longer. Before I get into the meat of this video of how to catch an elusive INTJ, there are a few things that I do want to say. My fellow INTJs, I humbly express my apology to this community, as this video should be an act of peace between all Myers-Briggs type instead of an attack towards the INTJ community. I'm so sorry guys for that bad accent. I just felt like being presidential. People keep asking for this video. I need the views, and a lot of INTJs in the comment section, y'all seem lonely. So it seems like a win-win-win situation for all of us involved. And before I begin, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Before I provide the tips, let's go over the most common question that INTJ hears when it comes down to dating. Does looks or physical appearance matters? And the answer is duh, but not as much as you think it would. INTJs, we know what's conventionally attractive and what makes a person conventionally attractive. We still have extroverted sensing in our fourth slot, so we are aware of why a person is attractive. And similar to any human being, of course we like being around a person that's attractive. Someone that's attractive is pleasing to the eyes. But looking like a model or having high social proof, and high social proof meaning status, wealth, or fame, will only get your foot through the door. Yes, we like looking at handsome or pretty people. Yes, we like social proof. Yes, a person that has money, that owns their own yacht, or someone that's a superstar that is known worldwide is exciting. But excitement doesn't last, and it's nothing to build a foundation on. INTJs tend not to be clout chasers. And for the viewers watching who are almost expired or just not hip with it, the Urban Dictionary definition for clout means extroverted sensing is in our fourth slot. Extroverted feeling is in our seventh slot. Both of those cognitive function engages with the world, whether it's with people or whether it's with things. So we don't value social norms the same way that other types value it. And a funny thing is what seems to be conventionally attractive to the mass isn't really attractive to us, because we have FI, and FI cares about individuality. But don't get my words twisted, that doesn't mean we don't like what's conventionally attractive. If you're a conventionally attractive person and you check all the boxes when it comes down to foundations for an INTJ, that's fantastic. You're everything an INTJ wants, but it's not a requirement. That also doesn't mean that the person that an INTJ ends up with can be a slob. We don't need to be with someone hot. We just need to be with someone that's presentable. Additionally, being with someone that has wealth, that's nice, but it's just as nice being with someone who's low income, but has a dream and is actively working towards that dream. And the caveat to the last sentence is that the INTJ has to be in financial stability to the point where additional income won't add too much value into their lives. And the last thing that I want to add in this section is value through trauma. Traumatic experience will change a person, and that can never be overstated. So a person can be an INTJ and have completely different values through the trauma that they've experienced throughout their lifetime. And that doesn't make them any less INTJ. So to wrap up this section, looks and social proof does matter, but it only gets you a few dates, nothing more. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this so much is because I'm so tired of all my friends saying, oh, who cares, she's hot, or well, this person has money, so you're gonna be set. In the long run, it never matters, because our values don't align. This video is broken down into 3 different sections. The first section is how to build attraction with an INTJ to get the first few dates. The second section will focus on what to do when you have those few dates and when you're building comfort with an INTJ to get to a relationship. And the third section is how to build comfort with an INTJ to the point where they will see you as a potential life partner. I'm not gonna go over relationship advice in this video, nor will I go over the Myers-Briggs type that INTJs are most attracted to. I'll create videos for both of those topics. The entire purpose of this video is to understand the INTJ psyche, why we're interested in you, and why we decided to date you. So let's begin. Section 1. This is how you initially attract an INTJ. Let us see the real you as soon as possible. If you're goofy, that's great. If you're bossy, that's great. If you're insecure, that's great. We need to see who the real you are as soon as possible. And I know it's very counterintuitive to what the mainstream media tells you to put your best foot forward first, but that's not how it is dating an INTJ. Show your fears and insecurities and own up to it. There is nothing more unattractive to an INTJ than a person that's fake. But you also don't want to come off as a person with too many red flags. And I say too many red flags because INTJs are really good bullshit detectors. We're going to realize when there's a red flag and we're going to notice it. Most of the time we won't even tell you because it's not worth our time, or you're just not worth our time. So as with dating anyone in life, there's that fine line that you need to walk along. And I know that advice sounds like one of those,
but John, every type really wants to see the real person.
Negative, ghostwriter. And I'll fix that last sentence for you so that it makes sense. Most types say that they want to meet the real person initially. However, they're still trying to put their best foot forward, putting a facade out there. So why do those people expect you to be as real as possible if they're not willing to put themselves out as real as possible? And I've heard this advice for almost every single type out there, aside from the INTJs, that you should always put your best foot forward the first few dates, because afterwards, once that person gets comfortable with you, they'll start ignoring your flaws or start becoming more acceptable of your flaws. And as an INTJ, what I'm hearing is that you're hiding shit in the beginning. And what makes this different from INTJ is that it's so difficult for us to hide our flaws that we're going to try to put our best foot forward, but it doesn't work out. We're still going to be us. That line of thinking is the reason why there's so many people out there that goes to the INTJ subreddit asking what happened to their relationship and if they got ghosted. Yes, Grace, you were ghosted. So using cognitive function, let me explain to you the reason why. We have introvert intuition as our first function, extrovert thinking as our second function. If you want to be in a relationship with INTJ, you have to understand that we have a lot of goals and goals that we're trying to meet. These goals can span years, they can span months, they can span days, or it could be like a daily occurrence type of thing. There are even goals that we have that we're not even aware that we have. As an INTJ, we have plans for plans, or we have plans for not having plans. There's plans everywhere. And what makes INTJs different is that it doesn't matter whether it takes a few years, a few days, or a few weeks to accomplish a task. We're focused on that task. We're going to achieve it. It's just a matter of time. And before an INTJ gets in a relationship, we have to understand how much that relationship will provide a detour for us accomplishing our goals. Because when an INTJ verbally tells you that you're dating or that you're in a relationship, that means that we have made you a priority and we're building our goals around you. So quickly understanding your flaws, your weaknesses, your quirks, and everything that is you at your core will help us assess the situation quickly and determine whether this relationship will work out or not. And when I say work out, I'm talking about multiple different things. I'm talking about finance, I'm talking about education, I'm talking about family and friends, I'm talking about emotional needs, intellectual conversational needs, and every aspect of life. We're not only basing our conclusions based off of the flaws that we observed about you or what we've noticed about you or what you told us. We're balancing that with all the flaws that we are aware of ourselves. Because we're INTJs, we know we're a lot to handle. So how can an INTJ make a good judgment call if we don't have all the variables needed in order to see if this is a healthy relationship? And healthy relationship in regards to an INTJ is that we are able to grow individually and grow as a unit together. I've been told multiple times that this is a very selfish way of analyzing whether a relationship will work out, that we should include the other person in this process. No shit is selfish. We have a right to our own decision. A relationship is two or more people agreeing that the addition of another person will add value to their lives. I will respect your decision if you tell me you don't want a relationship with me. And in return, I expect the same from you. You're not going to convince an INTJ when we say no. So the moment that we tell you, hey, this isn't what I want, there's no changing our mind. We've already weighed everything out. There's so many things that we considered. It's not going to work out. The second reason why you should let us see the real you as soon as possible is because INTJs love individualism. I can't stress enough how attractive it is to see a person that's really comfortable in their own skin. The thing that INTJs understand is that every person is human and humans are inherently flawed. Sometimes the difference that you believe is a flaw in yourself might seem endearing to us, such as having freckles, wearing braces, snorting when you laugh. If we first meet a person, that person is just perfect, it seems fake, and our gut is telling us there's something wrong or that person is overcompensating or hiding something. I'm not saying don't try. What I'm saying is don't be fake. INTJs have introverted feeling in our third slot. That means we wear our flaws on our sleeves like a badge of honor. What you see is what you get. We're not going to change ourselves. Everything's on the table. Here it is. The what you see is what you get mentality accomplishes many things for an INTJ. What the INTJ does in the beginning is size you up to see whether you're able to handle us. One of the things that you have to understand about an INTJ is that we're always on the go. Even on our downtime, we're always working or learning something new. Because finishing a task or learning something new is comforting to us. INTJs love learning. What an INTJ does in the beginning is size you up to see whether you meet the minimum requirement to handle an INTJ. And when I say minimum requirement, I'm not saying that you're the issue. It's more of a minimum requirement that you have to keep your sanity to date us. And this might be a bad analogy, but I'm going to say it because it's easy to understand. The minimum requirement to date an INTJ is similar to the height restriction to ride a roller coaster. It's not that you can't ride the roller coaster, it's that you might get hurt riding the roller coaster. So when it comes down to the initial stages of romancing an INTJ, that's what we're doing. We're testing to see whether you meet that minimum requirement. We're going to ask you tons of questions, put you in weird situations, and learn as much as we can about you to make sure you can handle us. And then I know a few of you are thinking, well, you don't know whether it's going to work out unless you try. That's not how an INTJ works. We are aware that most people won't be able to keep up with us or handle our aggressive personality. And I hope you don't take this portion as a personal attack, because that's not the intention of this. Most of the time, you're not the problem. Unless you have a lot of red flags, then obviously you're a problem. It's just that you're trying to ride a ride that hasn't been built to accommodate every single person. And if you're still taking this as a personal attack after I explicitly told you that you're not the problem, that's a type of mentality that I'm talking about. That's a very weak mentality, and you won't be able to handle an INTJ at our worst. Now back to showing our true selves. Aside from an INTJ able to detect bullshit or sizing up our partners, if you're able to accept what makes you different or what your flaws are, then you're most likely going to accept an INTJ for our differences and what makes us flawed. And as with any intuition DOMs, INTJs are interested in so many different things. A lot of the things might seem morbid or just out of place or not acceptable in society, but we're interested in it. You can never tell a person how to feel. Similarly to you can never tell a person what to love. INTJs are going to be interested in so many different things. A lot of times you're going to be like,
What the fuck, INTJ?
that's just how we are. We're interested. The INTJ mind live in spectrums, but the way that we engage with life, we live in dichotomies. And as an INTJ, we've been told multiple times in our life,
Hey, INTJ, I didn't know you like that.
or
INTJ, I didn't know you could do that.
an INTJ could be the best dancer in a room on a dance floor, and we're not going to dance because we're not comfortable or we have nothing to prove to anyone. And most of the time, we don't want the spotlight. Unless we're drunk and SC comes out. When SC comes out, oh yeah, we're life of the party, baby. We're life of the party. So in conclusion to this section, show the INTJ who you really are as early as possible, because that's what we're looking for in a relationship. Section 2. Now that you have an INTJ interested, what do you do? What does a person do? The answer, be persistent yet patient. It sounds like I'm telling you to do two opposite things at the same time, doesn't it? It's because I am. Don't forget that INTJs live in spectrums, but we operate in dichotomies. So majority of the time, it's either stop or go. Very rarely are we ever in between those two. And when I use the term stop, it means we're exhausted from working on our plans or working throughout the day, so we actually have time to focus on other things that's not necessarily the highest priority, but it's something that's already on our list to do. And when I say go, I'm talking about INTJ nerd mode. N-I-N-I-N-I-N-I-T-E-T-E-T-E-T-E, go, 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 go. There's nothing stopping us in that mode. So they explain it as simple as possible. It's like you're playing red light, green light. You have to know when to be aggressive or persistent, and you have to know when to be patient. Let's start off with being persistent, because that's what's gonna make you stand out the most to an INTJ compared to other suitors. And before anyone asks, yes, this applies to both male and female INTJs, because confidence is sexy as. As mentioned earlier, INTJs are always working towards a goal or working on self-improvement. Even on our free time, we're working on one of these projects. Huge shout out to that viewer. Again, having introverted intuition and extroverted thinking means learning and working on projects calms us down. So most of the time, we're not even thinking about romance unless someone's out there putting that thought into our head. And let me make this extremely clear how this is INTJ specific. INTJs see courtship as a chore. I'm not talking about just responding to text messages. I'm talking about going on dates. I'm talking about anything that has to do with meeting a brand new person and seeing whether the relationship will work out or not. It's not fun for us. It is a chore. We'd rather not do it. Because we're not thinking about romance, most of the time it takes us a long time to reach back out to you because we're busy working on something else and we don't have the mental capacity in order to respond to your message. And this isn't a slight on you. It's actually a good thing. INTJs have a tendency of wanting to be succinct so that we don't get misunderstood, because a lot of misunderstanding when it comes down to an INTJ typically hurts a person because of miscommunication. When we're in our dating phase and an INTJ doesn't respond to you immediately or quickly, it's because we don't want to ruin things and we have to be in the correct mindset in order to provide the best answer. Sometimes it's also because we're not sure how we really feel yet, so we don't know how to engage you, or if we don't respond to multiple of your messages, we just don't want to talk to you at all. And yes, to an INTJ, there is a correct way to respond to a message, because if you don't respond a certain way, things might get chaotic, and INTJs don't like it when things are too chaotic, especially when it comes down to introverted feelings. So what's a person to think when you message an INTJ and the INTJ doesn't respond back? My recommendation, I know how silly it sounds, it's just to think nothing of it. Send another message if you really want to talk to us. Just make sure you don't bring up the fact that we didn't respond to your previous message. I'm not telling you you shouldn't feel like you're being ignored, because in a sense, we are very aware that you are being ignored. What I do want to point out is you feeling like you're being ignored is nothing special to you, because that's how we engage with most people in our lives. And I really do want to call out that we're not doing the whole, oh, don't respond back immediately or you sound desperate. INTJs don't have time for that. We know it's a bad habit, and I guarantee you we're not playing games. It's such an odd thing being an INTJ, because most of the time we're aware of what people want or expect from us, but we don't have the mental capacity to deliver what they want. And when I talk about mental capacity, it's not simple. It's not that if you take a 4-hour nap, you wake up refreshed and you're ready to go. No, there's a physical capacity and there's mental capacity. The 4-hour nap fulfills my physical battery, and then I need time to refill my mental capacity, my mental battery. One of the key things I do want to note is that just because we don't respond or react to a video or a message that you send doesn't mean we don't appreciate it. We really, really do. INTJs don't like to admit this much, and I don't know why we don't like to admit this. I personally do this as well, but it feels nice when people reach out to me, even though I don't respond back immediately or I don't respond back within a certain time frame. This meme encapsulates exactly what an INTJ goes through when we receive a text message from someone that we're interested in, but haven't figured out what this person is to us at this point. It's very annoying. And in reality, instead of responding to you immediately, sometimes we'll just leave you unseen. So does it make a difference when you reach out? And the answer is yes. It makes a huge difference when you reach out. Being persistent in this situation may be counterintuitive because it sounds as if you're being needy, and it will feel that way if you're doing it incorrectly. As with anything in dating, there's a right way and a wrong way of doing something. And when it comes down to an INTJ, there are 4 specific reasons why we believe we are receiving a text message. The first and easiest reason is that you're asking a question because you want a response. Questions warrant responses. That's clear. Everyone understands that. So when an INTJ is working on a project or working on something that we actually care about, something that we wedged in time for because it's a priority to us, if you send us one message, we're going to put it in a backlog and we'll respond to it later. If you send us 2 messages with 2 different type of questions, that's fine as well. It's okay, it might be something that needs to be answered, but I'll answer it whenever I can. However, if you send 3 or more questions, that's when it becomes stressful to us. INTJs are aware that there are certain questions that requires urgency, such as when to meet up or what restaurant we're meeting for our date. However, a lot of questions, it's not time bound. Your questions may seem very innocent, as if you're trying to keep the conversation moving or trying to keep the fire alive, but that's not how we interpret it. And again, too many questions that isn't time bound is very stressful. A way around asking all these questions because you're curious and you really just want to know is to preface those questions. Preface those messages to say something along the lines of, hey, I know you might be busy, but I do have a few questions. Answer it whenever you get the chance. There's no rush in it. We appreciate the option because it's you allowing us space to grow. The second way we can interpret a message is that you're thinking about us. And that's very cute. There's a huge difference from when an INTJ receives a question or when an INTJ receives a meme or a picture of whatever you're doing. Questions require engagement for an INTJ. However, a picture is used for entertainment. It also has that very subtle meaning of, hey, I'm thinking about you and I think you would really enjoy this picture, so here it is. Unless an INTJ straight up tell you, hey, we don't like those messages or stop sending those messages, it's endearing to us. INTJs really are the type to push your buttons subtly because it's very attractive to us when a person has enough confidence that regardless of how much we push back, they are willing to persevere and be persistent in order to gain our affection. INTJs know that when we're in a relationship and we're on autopilot, when TE answers a question, it's a matter of fact and it might be miscommunicated and it might hurt your feelings. So if you're able to handle us now, you'll most likely be able to handle us later. And the last thing that I do want to point out when it comes down to number 2 about sending pictures instead of asking questions is just don't overdo it. We don't want to open our phone and have to scroll through everything because that causes stress when there's too much to ingest. We don't know how to answer or which point to answer to. The third way that an INTJ can interpret a message is that you're trying to educate us on something about yourself. You're trying to teach us about you. I dated an ISTJ before and she would send me a play-by-play of her entire day, how the weather was, how traffic was, and something as simple as what her coworkers were eating. To some of you, it may sound like nonsense, but for myself as an INTJ who actually knew that person and understand their love language, I understood that that's how they build comfort with me. They are comfortable enough to tell me their play-by-play, and in return, I feel comfortable enough to talk to them about whatever I'm thinking of. And I want to be very clear that it's very specific to that person because she's an ISTJ. If you're a different type, there's different meanings to the way that you engage with us. As with anything, those type of conversations that you have with us to educate us on yourself, it can't be full of nonsense because we're bullshit detectors and we're going to notice that it's bullshit. You just want our attention. And if that's the case, we'll just leave you on red. We just won't even engage with you. Lastly, I do want to call out as well that if you provide any type of context in your day, TE is going to show up. TE is going to provide some type of insight. The last way an INTJ can interpret a message, which is most likely our default mode, is that it's just a comment to whatever was last said. If you provide an answer or a comment to what was last said and both parties receive what we already got in that conversation, we're just going to leave it. That's the end of the message. There's no point in continue it. But I do have a lot of ESFJ friends that continue those messages, and it blows my mind because it's so exhausting. It's like, why are we continuing this conversation? This conversation should have ended like 4 or 5 texts ago. I don't get you guys. Unless the INTJ wants the conversation to continue, this is where we'll take our leave. This is where we exit. Bye, guys. It's time for us to just stop communicating at this point. It's very odd for INTJs to have conversations about nothing. And I also am aware that there are certain types out there that this is comfort building for them, that they're able to talk about anything and everything that they want. That doesn't make much sense to us. And as with most things in INTJ's life, it comes down to time management, because the amount of time that we spend here could be spent on something else. And the reason why we care so much about that is because we're just tired. INTJs are just tired. Now let's get to the point of being patient. Most of the time, it's going to take a while for an INTJ to realize that you like us or that we like you. And let me repeat that so you heard what I said correctly. It's going to take a while for an INTJ to realize that you like us or that we like you. Very rarely would an INTJ be aware that someone is interested in us or that we're interested in them. I know it sounds extremely dumb, but personally, I didn't realize I was dating someone until after I met her family. I honestly can't tell you why INTJs are oblivious to this when this is common sense to most other types. The way that INTJ operates is that we create plans or blueprints in order to engage the world, and if we're not using that blueprint, then we're operating off of a different blueprint. So when we meet people out in public or with a group of friends, we're usually in social blueprint, not necessarily dating and romance blueprint. And then there's always that moment where it just clicks and we're like, oh, now it all makes sense. And as an INTJ, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's always that aha moment for an INTJ. The moment you're just like, oh my God, I'm so dumb. Like, why didn't I not realize that was happening? You know what I'm talking about, INTJs. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There's never a right time to tell an INTJ that you're interested in us, but you have to be very, very explicit to tell us that you're interested. I want to make this extremely clear. INTJs engage every interaction as if it's a platonic interaction, regardless of whether we're attracted to that person. So we could be in a situation where we're extremely attracted to you, and you're sitting on our lap, obviously flirting with us, and we can still arrive to the conclusion that this person is just a very friendly person, nothing else. Duh. And again, if an INTJ is interested in you, we're still not going to say anything, because first, we don't want to feel dumb, and second, if we're wrong, it ruins our information, it ruins our data, it ruins the blueprint. Most of you non-INTJs don't understand what it means to have incorrect data, because we build everything off of pre-existing information. So if one blueprint has something that's wrong, then the next blueprint that we've built the blueprint off of that data, that's wrong as well. So it's not a very simple fix. We can't just, okay, let's update this blueprint. No. We go through this short existential crisis where we're like, okay, let's trace it all the way back and let's trace it up the ladder. Let's trace it up the line and see where all the misinformation is. And then we start questioning every other information, every other conclusion, or every other plan or blueprint that we've created. It's not simple. It sucks. The beauty of expressing your interest to an INTJ is that you'll get a direct answer without any fluff. If the INTJ says they're not interested, then you have to accept it as a no. There's no change in their mind. Move on, fella. However, if INTJ says they're not sure, or they say yes, then it's game on, baby. Bring your A game. As with any relationship, just because they say they like you now doesn't mean they'll like you forever. When you get a verbal confirmation from INTJ saying, yes, I do like you, that means we're opening up this relationship to be romantic. And INTJs love to be romantic. INTJs won't tell you that we actually think about romance, but the reason why we don't really act on it much, or the reason why you don't see INTJs as romantic, is because we're waiting for the right person to be romantic with. It's not very often, but when it does happen, we go all out, baby. We will make you feel like the prettiest person in the entire fucking world. Even though an INTJ gives you the green light, that doesn't mean you should change how you're engaging us. You still need to pursue us whenever we're in our downtime, and you still need to be patient. It really depends on where the INTJ is in romance, whether they're ready for a relationship now or whether they're working towards something and they'll be ready for a relationship in X amount of time frame. And I hope everyone's aware that's just basic relationship advice. And how that's specific to an INTJ is that we need to figure out whether our values align and whether we have foundations that we could grow together. INTJs evaluate the situation to see whether there's a high probability for a lifelong successful relationship. And I want to emphasize in the last sentence, I use the word probability and not possibility, because those two words mean completely different things. INTJs are not going to give a relationship a chance just because there's a chance. chance. We will only engage in a relationship whenever there's a high chance of it being successful. And in terms of values and fundamentals, here are two different examples. If INTJs feel strongly about dating a smoker because they've witnessed a bunch of their family members die from lung cancer as a direct result from smoking, if you're smoking when you're single, there's a low probability that you're going to stop smoking just because you're in a relationship with me or with an INTJ. Or if an INTJ is religious or an atheist and follows either lifestyles, and either lifestyle is very important to them, how likely are you to join their religion or not preach your religion onto them? In addition to that, what about the kids? How are you going to engage with the kids that you have? So if you reach this point, all you have to do is be patient and let your values speak for itself. Keep this up, and you'll keep the INTJ interested. My final advice in this video is how to get over the last hurdle, how to convert dating an INTJ to becoming official. This advice is very common sense. However, not a lot of people practice it, so I feel like it has to be said. My final advice in order to attract an INTJ to be both accepting and understanding. For this recommendation, I'm going to add emphasis by swearing. I know I swear a lot and I apologize in advance, but I want you to understand that if you mess this portion up, your chances of dating an INTJ is going to get to 0. Actually, it's going to go lower to 0. It's going to be in a negative. It's going to be like negative infinity squared. My final advice is don't fuck with an INTJ's introverted feeling. There's nothing to joke about, and don't poke fun at it. I don't care if you're a natural jokester. This is one of those lines that you just don't cross when it comes down to an INTJ. As an INTJ, we spent our entire lives trying to logic our way out of everything, trying to repress our feelings, trying to do everything that we can to push feelings away, only to realize that we can't win that battle, that we're human, and to be human means we're supposed to feel feelings. And if you're not familiar with cognitive functions, FI is a function that focuses on navigating and managing personal feelings, tastes, and values. To understand this portion of the video, you have to understand cognitive functions. I made it explain like I'm 5 INTJ cognitive function video, so watch that video first before you engage with the rest of this video. And I made that video in an animation program. It's very cute. The top 2 cognitive functions for an INTJ is introverted intuition and extroverted thinking, which means that introverted intuition is always going to take in all these different information and build the probability of something happening, and extroverted thinking is going to take that and run with it. We're going to work on a lot of projects, and then introverted feeling comes in. So no matter how long we've been working on a project, how long we've been focused towards a career, how long we've been working on something, all the accolades, all the awards, all the places that we're going to get to, all the money that we can accomplish, none of that matters if introverted feeling tells us it doesn't matter. Throughout our lifetime, INTJs realize that feelings can't be approached in a pragmatic way, but we still try to push back our feelings or introverted feeling as long as we can. Easiest way to explain this is a horror movie. Introverted feeling to an INTJ is like the murderer or the monster that everyone's trying to run away from. Introverted feeling always catches up. And when it catches up, it slaps everyone on the ground and tells them, yo, do you care about what you're spending your time on right now? And a lot of the times the answer is no. So we have to do everything again because introverted feeling tells us you're just wasting your time at this point. Eventually, we have to embrace introverted feeling and understand that we're going to feel a certain way about certain things that goes against all logic. And there are a few stances that we have when it comes down to potentially controversial topics. And we feel a certain way because we feel it. Not because logic makes us feel that. It's because we feel it and then we build logical conclusions that will support how we feel about it. It's very, very different from how you expect an INTJ to be, because when you read about INTJ, it sounds like we do everything based off of logic. But the older you get, the more you understand our logic is based off of how we feel about certain things. And when you engage an INTJ, when it comes down to introverted feeling, you're engaging a part of us that we hide from the world. Whether we think it's embarrassing, we're ashamed of it, or for one reason or another, this is a part of an INTJ that most people will never see. Because to be emotional means to be vulnerable, and INTJ doesn't like being emotionally vulnerable. The best advice that I can provide to you in this situation, and I'm paraphrasing to make it make sense in the context of this video, is you have to love and accept the INTJ for all the reasons the INTJ believes the world hates us for. If you ask an INTJ what our flaws are, what's wrong with us, why society hates us, we're going to give you a long list of reasons, because as an INTJ, we've never fit in. Even as early as adolescence, we realize that we just don't quite fit into the society. So the moment that you see FI, understand that you're seeing a part of us that has been beaten down multiple times throughout our entire lives, and we feel comfortable enough to finally show you something that most people will never see. This is the reason why there's a lot of negative INTJ stereotype for us being very cold and calculated. It's because we are only going to show NINTE because we're so afraid to show introverted feeling. I feel like this is another basic relationship advice, and how this is very specific to an INTJ is because, again, we don't like showing how we feel about certain things. If you talk to a mature INTJ, you're going to hear this a lot, that we feel like we're an open book. If someone asks us a question, we're going to answer them. And yes, I do that as well. I'm also aware that even though we answer them, we only answer the first layer of the question that they're asking. We're not telling them the why we're doing this. INTJs, we're like Shrek. We're an onion. We have different layers. And the closer you get to an INTJ, the more we're willing to open up that layer to let you see the core INTJ, or FI. And FI, in regards to this video, means our actual identity. I honestly can't express enough how difficult it is for an INTJ to express FI to someone. It's equivalent to being completely naked towards someone that you're hoping isn't disgusted by what they see. It takes a whole lot for an INTJ to get to this point, to start showing you who we actually are. So the moment that you poke fun at us, the moment that you make a joke when it's unnecessary and it hurts us, we're gonna clam up. That onion's closing. You're done. But I also want to call out that introverted feeling can be discussed. But you should never go into those conversations expecting us to change our mind, because that's not going to happen. Introverted feeling for an INTJ does change with time. The more that we grow, the more that we mature, the more that we experience life, we're going to change it. However, it's never influenced by the external world. It is influenced internally. We can experience the worst thing in the external world. However, if it doesn't make sense to us internally, nothing's going to change. So if you hear an INTJ talk about something that they really care about, something that they're passionate about, something that they're not willing to budge, you can ask them questions as to why they arrived at that conclusion and why they feel that way. Again, don't ever feel like you can ever change their mind, because you can't. So whatever you do, don't ruin that trust with an INTJ, because it's almost impossible to ever get it back. But you know you're there once you get there, because one day you're going to be in a car with an INTJ driving to get groceries, and all of a sudden the INTJ talks about something that is very personal to them, and it might come out of the blue to you, but in the context of that conversation, it makes sense for the INTJ to disclose that. Take it as comfort is being built between the two of you, and the INTJ feels comfortable enough around you to be able to tell you that secret. Don't ever make them regret telling you that secret. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of this video. I know the video was longer than usual, but I felt like there's a lot to go over, and honestly, I cut a lot of content in this video in order to make sure that it just didn't get too extremely long. I do want to help out the community by providing accurate information for anyone that's interested in acquiring an INTJ, and I want to make sure that if you're interested in INTJ, you understand why we are the way we are. To anyone that's actively pursuing an INTJ, good luck. And for all the INTJs that are actively being pursued, be kind. You know how difficult it is to win us over. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like this content, because I put out a lot of videos. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.